Dacă pierde războiul, Vladimir Putin va fi eliminat de oamenii lui, o spune răspicat omul care a destructurat o rețea KGB din interiorul CIA. Robert Baer, fost agent al serviciului secret american.
Lupta președintelui rus este chiar cu dușmanii din interior, cu oamenii care au spus că războiul cu Ucraina trebuie câștigat cu orice preț și prin orice metodă.
Haideți să vedem dezvăluirile agentului care cunoaște la virgulă modul de acțiune al laboratorului secret de la Kremlin.
Mr. Baer, first of all, I want to thank you for accepting this invitation at NewsHour with CNN. It's such an honor to have you on our show.
Of course, I'm delighted.
Many experts spoke about the removal of Vladimir Putin from the Kremlin. Is this a realistic scenario?
Everything Putin does is in response to internal, dissent in Russia. He's fighting internal enemies. He's fighting hardliners in the intelligence service. He's fighting hardliners in the army. He's appealing to them. And they have told him, it's very clear, that you cannot lose this war. And you have to think of anything you can come up with to destroy Ukraine. No, it's not going to stop. He's in trouble and he's got nowhere to go. The future, if he loses this war, is what the KGB calls a control shot. That's one bullet in the back of the head. My experience is that regimes like this, and especially a KGB-run regime, that Vladimir Putin has probably, what we say, coup-proofed the regime. Any colonel, any general could possibly think independently, was shunted aside and retired. They have no power. An organized plot against Putin, right now, I don't see it. I mean, Russians are terrified to even talk about it, think about it, propose it. And they're certainly not on telephones. They're certainly not meeting about this. It's just too dangerous.
If we can imagine, sir, who do you think could remove Putin from power? Could be one of his generals, maybe, or the Russian intelligence?
I think the closest people to Putin that could get to him, either in the Kremlin or anywhere else, is probably the FSB. It's Internal Intelligence Service.
Yeah.
They have the arms. They have the will. You've got Russians. They haven't all lost their minds. And Russians know that Putin has made a horrible mistake and that one way to correct it would be to get rid of him. And if, just two or three of these guys that are ready to move on him, it would be a good thing.
Do you think Putin has more enemies or more friends in his circle now at Kremlin?
Well, I think it's a question of how many people he's terrified. Friends, who are the hardliners in Russia, how much influence they have, that's fairly unknowable. There's a small circle of people that still see Putin, as I'm told, and he's, ever since COVID started, he's been locked up, isolated, psychopathic in a lot of ways, paranoid, and he himself is terrified of the way things are going.
Do you think that Vladimir Putin takes advice from his advisor, or is he feeling angry and acting irrationally?
This problem, they're all in it together. I mean, his close advisors are well known, and if he goes down, so will they. And they're sitting around saying, well, what do we do next? This attack on the causeway into Crimea was humiliating for him. And they sit down the next day and say, what do we do next? We have to terrorize the Ukrainians. I mean, don't forget, in all fairness, strategic bombing was resorted to by the Allies in World War II. They flattened Germany, essentially. And when anybody's in trouble, they turn to strategic bombing. So that's why we really have to look at the state of the Russian army. If there's a general collapse, I think that's all cards are off the table, including tactical nukes.